Man on the Moon is quite a silly book. It's about when Bob goes on the moon and he says there's no such thing of aliens when there is. He's a clever man and he really a little bit silly. He has a really special job. His job is to clean the moon. We just look at the pictures. I can read a little bit of it. Some long words make me hard to read.
They were definitely not the dream class in September, a class of 28 Year 2 children with a poor attitude to reading and writing, mainly due to low levels of achievement and not a positive experience to literacy. Well, when we started the book, The Man on the Moon, I didn't actually show them the book for 3 days. So we started with a picture and lots of inquiry, what do we think is happening, and using questions, looking at question words and how we ask questions and how we answer questions. So it was a big basis on speaking and listening, how we speak, how we talk in full sentences, how it's polite to ask questions and general manners, as well as the actual backbone of the literacy. The illustrations are so real and they pull the children in. And I think the thing that the children like the best is the reality of Bob being this very normal man who lives in his house, he gets up and he has his breakfast. But then instead of getting in his car or on the train, he then pops off into his rocket and flies to space.
I just think as adults we so underestimate what's going on in a picture book, and the amazing thing about working with young children and picture books is how sophisticated they are when it comes to reading the pictures and the words and putting the two together. So you're giving children a chance to feel very confident and very at home in a book, to inhabit a book. How do we know we like books if we've never felt comfortable with one? If all we're going to do is feel that we may not be able to read those dancing little back things on the page, that's very alienating. Stories are told in so many ways. Stories are told by what you bring to them. No story is a flat thing which is the same for everybody. We all respond differently. And then the words tell us what the author wants us to read, though that may not be the only story he wants to tell.
Some people say that aliens are responsible for much of the rubbish, but Bob knows that's not true. There's no such things as aliens.
Alien.
What, sorry?
You just skipped the page.
No, you're wrong. There is no such thing as aliens.
My teacher thinks there's no aliens in the book, and there's really lots of aliens in the book. They were in craters and they were behind Bob doing silly stuff. There was one next to the kettle. The aliens were in his rocket too.
Young children are very skilled at reading pictures. They've been brought up to do that in a sense. I mean, they have to see the world first in pictures. Print is a late comer for them. And so with a book like Man on the Moon, they are able to find an awful lot of the things that the adult won't even really look for. The domestic scene of him standing there with his hoover, just like Mum might be doing at home, except he's actually hoovering around the craters. It's details like that. And then introducing characters like, the aliens are very much at the back of the picture. But a child looking at this spread would think, who are they? They'd start peering there. Children look, they look carefully, and they get so much out of that. It makes a huge difference to a child to have met an author. It's not because they want to meet a celebrity, though they quite like that, but it's about beginning to hear what it is to make a book. And there's nothing, absolutely nothing, like meeting an author to be interested in what they've written. It changes the nature of it. It's not just this thing that comes and this is what the teacher says. It's, I've met the man who made this book.
You know who I am then?
Yes,
I'm Simon Barton, and I'm an illustrator, and I illustrate picture books. Now, do you all like picture books?
Yeah.
I think I'm trying to please myself. I mean, that's how I came up with the idea for The Man on the Moon. But I think a good thing about being an illustrator is you can sort of keep hold of it, and you've got a good excuse to be young, really. But I don't intentionally think, yes, I'm catering to for a 7-year-old or a 6-year-old or a 10-year-old. I just do whatever. I think you've got to just do whatever comes out, and then the publishers will tell you if it's any good or not, if it can be used for something or not. I've got a list here of all the things I've done in the last year or two, all the different subjects. I've drawn spacemen, I've drawn pirates, good fun. I've drawn a person who was made completely out of snow. I've drawn aliens, as you've probably seen, rockets, as you've seen. I've drawn sprouts that can juggle. I've drawn sausages with legs. I've done all sorts of things. Sometimes, so I can get everything right, so I can get all the details right and the expression right and the way a figure would move, sometimes I have to even take photographs of myself so that I can get the details. And look at these photographs. There's me. I've got slightly longer hair, sitting in my house, trying to mimic the pose of Bob. So I can use some of, and even though it isn't exactly the same, I can use some of the folds and some of the expressions and the knife and the fork and the plate, and so I can just see how it looks, and then I sort of adapt it. And there's another one. Let's have a look. That's not very good. What a daft face! And sometimes I look very stupid. And when I go into the shop, when I go into Boots and to get my photographs developed, they look at me. Oh, there's that funny man who's getting the funny photographs developed. But that's what I have to do. I don't always do that, but sometimes I do. By 12:30, it's time to eat. Bob goes to his rocket ship to fetch his lunch box. Usually this contains 2 sandwiches, either cheese or peanut butter, an apple, and some chocolate-covered nuts.
Can I ask you something?
Yes.
You see what you put in the food? Is that your favourite food?
I don't like cakes very much, but I quite like crisps. Some people say that aliens are responsible for much of the rubbish. But Bob knows that that's not true. There are no such thing as aliens.
Where did he...
Yes, there is. I think we know that there are aliens. And we can see them, I think, in this picture here. Somewhere. Go there. Up here, yes. And there's 3. There's 3 aliens. And one of them is pointing to the Earth, isn't he? Now, what do you think he's saying to his friends?
The last one. Just go in the earth and destroy it. Yeah.
Well, I just think Bob is so wrapped up in the moon. He loves it so much and he knows everything about it, but he misses the point of things. He's a lovely chap, very nice, and he can do anything for you, but he doesn't quite get the point of it, really.
I quite often look out to my class and think, have they got little ears sticking out? They do have a resemblance to children, so maybe the children see themselves as the aliens. All I know, they are just a wonderful image in the book that just attracts the children in and make them want to know why, or who, or in their case, why I can't see them.
So he says, there's no such thing as aliens. Yes, definitely there are aliens. And now I know because I painted this picture and I can remember doing it. So I know that they're definitely aliens. 1, 2, 3. And they look a bit mischievous, don't they? They look a bit. Do you think do they look nice or do they look scary?
No.
You can read the words and then there's almost a sort of subplot going on. And also trying to make the children feel that they're special because they notice some of the things that are happening which aren't in the words. If my finger touches an alien, then I want you to shout out alien. But I know you won't because there aren't any. So I'll be very surprised if you shout out alien, but we'll have a go, okay? Do you know what you have to do?
Yeah.
Right. So I'll put my finger there. This is a hand. See, it's a hand, and there's some rope there, and there's a suitcase and coming over there. Oh, yes, there's an alien. I forgot about that one. Yes, there is an alien. Yes, of course. There's one alien in this picture. No. So, I'll give you the big benefit of the doubt. One more time. Coming up here, and there's the... No. Oh, I forgot about him as well. 2 aliens. Right, let's turn over to the next one. There's no more. No, there's no. You're all right. One last time, then. There's a picture on the wall and a little flute whistle thing and a football. That's not an alien. Not an alien. Not an alien. No aliens. No aliens.
It's a very clever adult who doesn't feel they have to point everything out so that the child can then build a relationship. And in a sense, in this book, the aliens are the children. So for the children to see them is completely appropriate. I mean, Bob spends his life with these other adults. He spends his life with the men from the moon, and he spends his life looking after the space tourists, and he gives them lessons and all the rest of it. If he doesn't see the aliens, which he appears not to, or not think of them as aliens, then that's absolutely delightful if the adult introducing the book doesn't see them too. And then there's a collusion of adults, but much more importantly, there's a collusion of aliens and children.
Seeing the children with Simon Bartram today really made it all come alive, and it put it into context for them. And not all children actually know the process that goes behind the book, or thinks that the people are real and that they're just normal people, and it sets that sight of achievement for them, thinking maybe I could be an author, maybe I could be an illustrator.
My name is Haja and I like Simon Bartram's book. Can I read the story?
Have you written him a letter?
Yes. Dear Mr. Bartram, how do you drink your tea? Why did you call the man on the moon Bob? Is your job fun? From Haja.
Dear Mr. Bartram, I like the man on the moon. What do you think about yourself? Where do you get your ideas from Zainab?
Dear Mr. Bartram, I like Bob. What do you like to eat from Sean?
It doesn't matter whether you can write 2 pages of the highest standard or whether you are still writing a sentence, that every child feels included. And I think that's what this has done. It's really brought inclusion to a great big sort of pot and mixed it all up together. And by doing that and the children thinking, I enjoy this, they're not worried about whether they can do it because they just want to. And I think that's been the biggest thing. It's not about, oh, I can only write 10 words. It's, I really want to say this, how can I write it? And that has been absolutely overwhelming to see that happen. Obviously, I don't want to produce a class of children that can't read and write, but the biggest part of it is they need to enjoy literacy, they need to enjoy books, they need to enjoy writing, they need to understand that it's a form of communication and that they need to have that to instill them for life. And realising that literacy isn't just about words, that it's about pictures, it's about communicating. How we talk to each other is all about literacy. You can flog your heart out teaching at the front of that classroom, but if the children aren't interested, it's a complete waste of time. So I think captivation and imagination is the biggest thing to pull in before we start worrying too much about what book we're told we've got to do or what genre we've got to do. What I would advise from now on is just to browse through bookshelves and just go with your gut feeling on a text and not be too scared to be thinking, what objective am I ticking off? Because if you've got to meet objectives, you can find ways to meet it. And I think the biggest thing is you need the children on side.
I think it's easy to write a book because you just need to write interesting words and sensible sentences.